Hey everybody, how's it going today? My name is Adam Puglia, and I'm going to be talking to you about remote data centers. So I read a case about Vern Global, which is a data center in Iceland that is 100% green. So it uses all renewable energy. So that's pretty big deal. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what we need to consider before a mid-sized company makes the switch to a remote IT infrastructure. So the first factors we need to take into consideration are technical factors. So is this new place going to offer us enough space, bandwidth, equipment, and maintenance to satisfy the needs that we already get from the things that we provide for ourselves? So space, first of all, Vern Global has 200,000 square feet, which is going to be definitely big enough for a mid-sized company. Next, we have bandwidth. So this is kind of a bigger issue. Latency times are a big deal for people who are going to be hosting information online. But if you look at this graph here, you can see that Vern Global is going to be pretty good at handling high density, high compute applications. So if we're going to need to be hosting email, Web 2.0, and other web applications, Vern should be good enough for us. Next, we have to consider the equipment. So Vern Global is going to provide us with all the infrastructure equipment we need, like UPS and power generators. So we don't have too much to worry about there. And then last, we have to worry about maintenance. So Vern Global actually provides remote hands that can be paid to maintain your equipment for you. So that kind of takes a lot of that concern away. Next, we're going to talk about economic factors. So power in the United States is roughly about 16 cents per kilowatt hour, and then over in Iceland, they only have to charge 4 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's going to turn out to be about 65 to 75% cost savings on just the power rates alone. So that's going to save a ton of money. And then we also can take into consideration that they're going to have a lot lower overhead because they use free cooling a lot, which reduces the power that they have to use for air conditioning and other things like that. And then another economic factor is that price inflation for power is only 3% over in Iceland compared to 8% in the United States. So as we continue to move forward in the future, it's going to get more expensive here, and it's not going to get too more expensive over there. Now we can go to environmental factors. So as I mentioned earlier, it's 100% green. So all their power is supplied by hydroelectric and geothermal energy. So we're not going to be contributing any greenhouse gas emissions by moving over there. So that's going to be really good for us. Um, like I said earlier, we're also going to reduce cooling costs by at least 80% because it's so much colder over there. They just use the cool air, filter it through, and it's really good for them. And then just to make one more point about the green electricity, so they get 100% green power, and they've only utilized 17% of all the renewable energy on the country. So they have so much more that they can tap into, so that it will continue to be 100% green. So next, we're going to talk about organizational factors. So we might have some resistance from higher ups who experience something we call server hugging. So they want to keep the infrastructure close to them so that they can maintain control and they can avoid problems like theft and other security breaches and things like that. So we need to make sure that the higher ups in the company aren't going to be too reluctant to move just because they want to keep it close. So another thing we have to consider here is that if we do move over there, it's going to be cutting out a lot of greenhouse emissions that might give us a leg up for future carbon tax and a current cap and trade system that's being put in place in the United States. So it would allow us to, we wouldn't have to pay a carbon tax, and it could allow us to have valuable trade um, assets that we can trade with other countries, other companies, just to give us a leg up. So that's going to be really helpful for us. And then last, we're just going to take a look at some concerns here. So Iceland has been having an economic crisis lately. I don't think that's going to affect like the power and everything like that too much, but it is definitely something to keep an eye on. There's also the fear of the unknown, so people don't really want to do things that are new. So that's kind of a concern as well, but I think we can overcome that. As I talked about earlier, latency issues are a problem, but it was shown that latency was only 18 milliseconds from Iceland to London, and in contrast to that, from the Midwest to either coast in the United States, there's a 25 millisecond latency. So it's really not that much slower than if you just had it in the United States. But I mean, it's going to definitely be a little slower, but not too much. And then one last concern is earthquakes and other natural disasters. But if you take a look at this graph right here, it shows that Keflavik, that's Iceland, that's the town it's in, that actually has a way lower projected earthquake impact than San Francisco and Los Angeles. So that's really not too much of an issue. There are a lot of volcanoes in Iceland, however. So if there was like a volcanic eruption, that's definitely something that we need to keep an eye on, but it's definitely a slim chance. So here we go to our final decision here. So should we do it? The benefits are that it's 100% green. There's remote hands that can help you out over there. It's way cheaper power, less overhead. It lets someone else manage, so you can free up your people to work on new things, or it's just gonna save us a lot of money. And then there are some drawbacks. We're gonna have less control, higher latency. There's a lot of unknowns, and there's definitely a possibility for natural disasters. So those are some drawbacks, but I feel like the benefits of moving to a remote IT infrastructure are going to definitely outweigh the drawbacks. So I think that if you're a mid-size or a large company, you definitely should consider moving to an offshore location. So hope you guys learned something, and have a good day.